King Arthur, the noble king. The Shining Knights of the Round Table.
Excalibur, Merlin, Camelot.
For centuries, his name has been synonymous with courage, chivalry, and a golden age of ancient Britain.
He's the ultimate hero, right?
But what if I told you he never existed? Not the way you think, anyway.
What if the single legendary King Arthur was in reality a magnificent historical deception? Because deep in the dusty archives of history, the truth is far more complex and, frankly, far more gripping. History is screaming a secret. King Arthur wasn't one man.
He was likely a team.
A collection of Roman-British generals, warlords, forgotten heroes. Those individual exploits were stitched together over centuries to create one of the most enduring myths of all time.
And once you see the evidence, it will change everything you thought you knew about the legend.
To understand this seismic shift in history, we first need to understand the chaos that birthed the legend.
Imagine Britain in the 5th century AD.
Rome, the colossal empire that had dominated the island for nearly 400 years, is crumbling. By 410 AD, its legions are pulled back to defend a failing empire.
Britain is left exposed, vulnerable. A power vacuum opens up, and into that vacuum pour waves of invaders: Angles, Saxons, Jutes, Picts, Scots.
They weren't just raiding, they were settling.
This was an existential crisis for the native Romano-British people.
Who steps up in this desperate hour? Not a king with a fancy crown and a round table.
No, the historical records from this era are notoriously sparse, full of gaps.
But what does emerge are whispers of formidable local leaders.
Men who weren't necessarily kings, but generals.
Romanized Britons, trained in the tactical brilliance of the legions, but fighting for their homeland.
These were the men who organized the fragmented British forces. They fought strategic battles, often pushing back the invaders.
They were the shield against the encroaching darkness. And here's where the true story of Arthur begins to emerge from the shadows.
Take Ambrosius Aurelianus. Mentioned by the 6th century monk Gildas, he was a prominent Roman-British leader, a gentleman who perhaps alone of the Romans was then left alive.
He's described as a man of moderation, leading the Britons to their first significant victory against the Saxons.
This isn't just some forgotten footnote. Many historians see Ambrosius as a prime candidate for a significant piece of the Arthurian puzzle.
He had the military prowess, the leadership, and the timing.
But it doesn't stop there. Then there's Rhiothonus, a king of the Britons who in the late 5th century led an army, not just in Britain, but actually crossed the sea to Gaul, fighting against invading Goths.
Sounds a lot like a powerful, far-reaching leader, doesn't it?
The historical letters mentioning Rhiothonus even describe his forces going to a place called Limitus, a borderland, before suffering a betrayal. The parallels to early Arthurian tales, even before the full legends formed, are uncanny. A powerful leader, a foreign campaign, even a betrayal.
So you have Ambrosius, a defensive hero, Rhiothonus, an offensive leader with a continental reach.
And then there are dozens of other unnamed, unrecorded local chieftains, warlords, and battle-hardened veterans. Men who achieved local victories, inspired their people, and left their mark on the oral traditions of the time. Now, imagine these individual stories, tales of brave generals, miraculous victories, strategic retreats, passed down through generations by bards and storytellers in a world desperate for heroes. Over decades, then centuries, these separate narratives began to merge. Why? Because a fragmented people needed a unified hero. They needed a symbol of resistance, a golden age to cling to, a rallying cry against oppression. The human mind loves a single powerful narrative. It's easier to remember, easier to inspire.
And as the oral tales eventually made their way into written form through chroniclers like Nennius in the 9th century, and most famously Geoffrey of Monmouth in the 12th century, the separate threads were woven tighter and tighter.
Each chronicler, each storyteller, added their own flourishes.
The magic, the round table, the quest for the Holy Grail, these were later embellishments, brilliant additions that transformed a collection of historical figures into the mythic figure we know today.
The individual exploits of these Roman-British generals, their battles, their leadership, their enduring spirit, were fused into one singular, iconic figure. King Arthur became not just a man, but the embodiment of an entire people's struggle, their hopes, their dream of a unified Britain that never quite was.
It's like this. You don't need a single bullet to bring down an enemy. Sometimes it's a volley. And Arthur wasn't a single bullet. He was the volley of countless heroes.
So, does this revelation diminish King Arthur? Does it make him less legendary, less inspiring? I would argue absolutely not. In fact, it makes him more powerful.
It shows us that even in the darkest hours, when empires fall and chaos reigns, leaders emerge. Not always kings with crowns, but pragmatic, brilliant individuals who fight for what they believe in.
King Arthur, the composite hero, is a testament to the collective spirit of a people refusing to be extinguished. He represents the courage of not just one man, but of an entire generation of Roman-British defenders.
The truth is, sometimes the most compelling stories aren't about singular, perfect heroes, but about the messy, complex, and deeply human efforts of many.
The legend of King Arthur isn't a lie, it's a mosaic, a breathtaking collection of true heroics meticulously assembled over centuries into a single immortal symbol.
And understanding that, I think, makes the legend shine even brighter.
What do you think? Does this historical perspective change how you see the Knights of the Round Table?
Let me know in the comments below.
And if you want us to dive into more hidden histories and expose more fascinating truths, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell.
Because trust me, history is full of secrets waiting to be uncovered.
And we're just getting started.